Mr. Stevens says, I'm arresting you on suspicion of armed robbery. You do not have to say anything, but anything you...
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Those of you who watched the previous show, which we just finished about 10 minutes ago, will realise that I got a lot of abuse from people in the chat about having sunburn. So I'm going to stay like this.
Oh, what are you doing? That's a cop-out. Hey!
I've already seen the comments in the chat.
Go back behind the thing.
Yeah, I've had a lot of I can see a lot of people in the chat having a laugh. It's Steve in the fridge, blah blah blah. So yes, we'll probably get a few of them throughout the show. Okay, we're going to build this through the summer as a transfer show with Liam because like I've said on Geordie's here, Geordie's there. We've got to go with what everyone else is talking about. We've got to be talking about ins and outs. I think what we always try to do is give a balanced view on NUFC matters. We don't like to lead people up the garden path, chuck names into the mix just for the sake of chucking them in. If there's something which looks concrete, we'll discuss it on here. But I'll put this disclaimer out every time I speak about transfers on NUFC matters. Just because we're talking about it doesn't mean it's going to happen. There may be an in, there may be an out that we get lucky with, and we're discussing on here. We're right, but none of the people who contribute to NUFC matters are claiming to be experts or saying we know this for definite. But the good thing about having people like Liam on, Ben Jacobs in particular, Ross to a lesser extent, because Ross doesn't have his finger on the pulse like Liam and the lads do, is ultimately they do pick up a little bit of information. They know a lot of journalists, as do I, as does Mitch, as does Steve, and the rest of the lads on the panel. And yeah, we'll just try not to lead you up the garden path. That's all I'm saying. So I will come to your end of season review first, though, Liam. There'll be lots of questions coming into the chat. It won't take me long to go through this with you. So in the order that we've given it to everybody else, what's your goal of the season?
So I've just done a similar one with Jordan Cronin. We did a little bit on out and about. We got a little video with the at the quayside this afternoon, and we talked through the same sort of questions. His choice was a little bit more emotive, more to do with meaning. Mine is on pure technique. And I think for me, you would have to go a long, long way to beat the goals scored by Alan St-Maximin at Wolves for technical ability in scoring. I think there are goals that have meant more. Getting to the semi-final of the Carabao Cup, getting to the final, some of the goals in games outside of that. But for me, I'm just going to base it pure on football and technique. And I just think Alan St-Maximin's volley, you'll all remember it. I think it was nominated today for one of the Premier League goals of the season as well. That one pips the likes of, Jacob Murphy against Tottenham and Almiron, which was very good against. We've had some great goals this season. Isak
68.
Isak at Forest and Cher on the first day of the season, and there's been loads of really good goals. So, yeah, I think, but for me, that Alan St-Maximin goal takes some beating. For a ball to be dropping from probably 30 yards in the air to volley it with such control and technique was quite incredible.
Okay, good stuff. Your save of the season from Nick Pope.
Palace. Mm-hmm. The save against Palace was the way it was struck from the centre forward. Obviously, I was there. I remember Newcastle were under the cosh a little bit there, riding a storm, and it looked, as soon as he struck that ball, it looked like it was in. But a lovely fingertip save, and there's been loads. I think Nick Pope's somebody who kind of goes under the radar a little bit this season. Martin Dubravka made a really good case on the last day of the season to be man of the match in that game. Made 3 or 4 really good saves. But also, it was so easy to see why Nick Pope has taken us on a level defensively, because the amount of times I turned to the lads or the lads turned to me who I go to the matches with, and they said, yeah, Pope would have come for that. It was just one of those where he commands his box so well. I think 20 or 30 years ago, Nick Pope would have been eyed probably as one of the best goalkeepers on the planet, because he is an old-fashioned, virtually the best in the business at what he does, old-fashioned goalkeeper. Just sometimes it looks like he puts his boots on the wrong feet at times with his distribution, and that's me in jest saying that because he's not that bad. But yeah, I think the game has gone on so much that you need a little bit more than just being an old-fashioned goalkeeper. But as far as old-fashioned goalkeepers go, they don't come much better than Nick Pope.
No, definitely not. Okay, your match of the season?
You sent us this list in advance, Steve. I should really have done some preparation. Match of the season for entertainment and ebbing and flowing, and would probably be that Man City game at home that was 3s each. It was the game ebbed and flowed so much. But my personal game for my feelings, the way I felt during it was, and it wasn't even a game, it was just 20 minutes of football. It was the Tottenham game, because I've never sat at the ground where I've just been absolutely astounded by what I'm seeing in such a short space of time. So yeah, probably Tottenham. But if you were to say as a pure footballing spectacle, I think the Man City game, the way that they looked like they were going to score 5 in the first 20 minutes, and then Newcastle got a wrestle on it, and then looked like they could have scored 5 themselves, and then Man City came back, and it was just such an incredible game of football. But that Tottenham 20 minutes will take some beating.
Certainly will. Okay, young player of the season and player of the season. Combine those two.
Young's a bit easier to pick. And although Isak runs him close, I think Sven Botman's my young player of the season because of his consistency first season in the Premier League. Adapted to it excellently well. Look, I think he had his ups and downs. I do think he's a player who has limitations in certain respects. Probably balls over the top in his pace are one of the negatives to his game, but reads it well. Is a good character. And I think for the age that he is, I think he'll only get better. I mean, like I say, there's always negatives. I think you need somebody alongside him who can do a bit of the recovery side of things. But he reads it well. I mean, he gives centre forwards an extra yard than they probably need, but I think he has to do that so he doesn't get turned. But he's clever. and he knows himself. He probably hasn't got the pace of some of that players, and he uses that really well because his recovery is excellent in blocks and stopping crosses and all that kind of and tackles. And I think he's been excellent. Player of the season. Player of the season was probably really the hardest one to pick. And I went through this yesterday and thought a lot about it. And I think it shows how good a season it's been when I don't even put the young player who I've just picked into my top 5 for the player of the season. I don't even put Isak in, who was also nominated for Premier League Young Player. And I don't put a man who scored more goals than any other Newcastle striker in a season since Alan Shearer 20 years ago. If I can't even get him in my top 5, then you can tell it's been a very, very good season. So I'll mention the honourable mentions first before I tell you what my top 2 are, because I think for my top 2, I think they're quite clear for me. I'll say top 3. So honourable mentions definitely for Nick Pope, as I mentioned before. Kieran Trippier, who's despite criticisms, his distribution's been incredible this season. A leader, had a really, really a season I think that exceeded even the most positive of Newcastle United fans. Sean Longstaff, for me, you only know how good he is when he's not there. I think that's kind of the what everybody's learned from this team. This team is a team. It misses any part of it that drops out of that 11. And Sean Longstaff's a huge part, makes players around him look even better than what they are. You'd go a long way to find anybody with an engine like him. Incredible athlete as well as footballer. I'm sure himself he'd like to add a few more goals to his game, but really impressed with him. But my top 3 would be Bruno third. And that was tough to put him there because he's been incredible. Even when Bruno doesn't play well, everything goes through him. Everything. Then I would say Fabian Schär. And if you've got, I don't know if on that list you had an underrated player of the year, but he would absolutely be it. I think Fabian Schär's outperformed Sven Botman, despite all the noise that's gone along with Sven Botman. Fabian Schär's had a better season. I think he's been Newcastle's best defender, and I think he's been one of the best defenders in the league in a very unique sense that we've seen it on Sunday. There aren't many defenders who can carry a ball and play passes like he can, put it on a sixpence from 70 yards, can score goals from anywhere, can thread through balls from anywhere. He's got an incredible amount of assists for a centre-half. Shame he couldn't have added a couple more goals. That would have been nice to see. But he's just pipped to the top, and I think I've probably ran out of players now. I've mentioned virtually all the team. But for me, it's... And I don't want to do him a disservice by constantly going on about this recovery story and turnaround, but Joe Linton, for me, he's long past that sort of turnaround story now. He's more into the absolute Mr. Consistent, physical, strong, dominating. Still isn't a midfielder, can play there, but that's not his best position. And I think going forward, his best position will be seen as that left side forward because he scores goals. He can put goals on for other people and still be a dominating force, allows us to overlap and tuck in when he needs to, and a physical presence. I think I've never been happier for a footballer to get international recognition than what I was to see his name pop up on that Brazil list on Sunday. I thought it was an incredible thing for him to achieve after all that he's been through. All the it's all down to hard work and dedication. How he succeeded, and I'm all for it. I think for me, he's my player of the season. You're on mute.
Yeah, I know. I just noticed we've got people around, so I didn't want the background noise talking over you. Yeah, great to see that, Neil. Great to see that your dad's out of hospital, mate. That's spot on. That's who I was asking for. Didn't want to make it too public. Okay, your moment of the season, Liam. What moment stands out? Can be on the pitch, can be off the pitch, personal.
So I think the win at Southampton felt really special. The one in the first leg of the semi-final, because I think that was the moment when I came to a bit of a realization that actually I think we are going to go to Wembley, and it's been so long. Right? I remember that feeling quite special. And then, of course, I mean, the Leicester game previous to that was excellent, on a knife edge for so long, and then eventually it happened. I would actually have to give this one. It sounds like such a defeatist thing to do, but I would actually have to give this one my moment this season where I sat with stood up with hairs on the back of my neck, was when everybody filled out Wembley before kickoff and the flags went, and everybody with that to me, when I looked around, I realized, yes, we're here. And we meant business at that moment. And it just looked so special, like to know how divided this football club's been in so long. That to me was almost like a signifier of like the epitome of unity. And I thought it was just that'll live. The day itself won't. I hated it. I hated the day itself because of the result, but that moment within the day will live long in the memory for me. I thought it was really, really quite emotional, actually.
Yeah. Okay, good stuff. That's rounds up your review of last season. Roll on next season. The name that everybody is asking about in the chat. Tom Dixon, question for Liam. Is there anything on Gabri Veiga? Keith is in the chat. Good evening. He says, Gabriel Veiga, deal looking promising with 40 million release fee as Real Madrid fan account with 800,000 followers reporting they've lost out to us. Lots of people seem really, really keen on this. Scotty just wants to know. Scotty, he says, Veiga, true or nonsense? Craig Hope tweeting that we're being used. And Keith Patterson just wants to know, is it the first signing? Do you think rumours come from a credible Spanish source? They say he's knocked back Real Madrid to join Newcastle. I mean, I find it hard to believe, unless he doesn't want to play alongside Joselu, who's turned up at Real Madrid now. Lots of head scratching, I guess, at Newcastle now about that, but just shows you, there was a player in there just like there was with Big Joe. But what's your thoughts on Gabri Veiga, name that's getting bandied around today?
One thing about Joselu that has to be remembered is he's a homegrown player at Real Madrid. So he came through the academy there. So as much as we talk about ticking Champions League quotas, I very much think Real Madrid are walking down that route for a third choice striker as well. So I wouldn't get too excited about it, but he's done really well over there. I don't know anything about this Gabri Veiga. Everyone on here watches this show knows that I tell the truth. If I know, if I don't know, and it's a name that I've heard mentioned quite some time ago, but haven't heard any mention of since. But sounds like a player with quite some pedigree. I'd love to give you more information. But being brutally honest, I've been out for the kids with tea tonight, so I haven't even seen what anybody's been tweeting about it. Obviously, I've heard the news, but haven't had a chance to even check that one out at the moment. So might have to be one that waits for the next show, or keep an eye on my Twitter to see if I get any kind of update on it. But I would love to come in here and say, yes, it's going to happen, or no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I haven't got any news.
Okay. David Cook says, Liam, any more news on Bruno's new contract?
None more so than it will happen, and I expect it to happen very soon. It's been one there's been a lot of talks. So I've seen something today saying there'd been only brief talks or the starting of talks, but my information isn't like that. I think the nuts and bolts of the new contract, or the concept, of a new contract is something that's been aired with Bruno and his representatives for quite some time. So I would expect that he'll sign a new deal, and that would be the end of that. I don't see him going anywhere. I don't see a want from his team or him to go anywhere. But you're obviously with a top-class player, and we'll learn this, you're always going to get certain links to other clubs and things like that. And yeah, but I don't see the mentality and potentially leaving for Liverpool, not this summer anyway. Not with everything on the horizon, and how much he's enjoying life and his football here as well.
Would a new contract for Bruno mean a new pay structure, do you think?
Well, there isn't really a pay structure. I get that. So it's not like say, for example, with Liverpool and Tottenham, where they have hard lines, there isn't really any of that at Newcastle United. There's just a common sense, pragmatic approach to signing new players and levels. So it's all about managing squad unity, managing as much of the players who are already here as the ones who are going to come through the door. So I wouldn't say there's necessarily a structure. But what they're not, so the basic premise of what they're thinking is they're not going to sign somebody on 300 grand a week. So when you see people, as I mentioned last week, where they're like, Declan Rice, get him in, Declan Rice, they're not going to pay the money for Declan Rice. And if they do, it would be a surprise, because that's not really what they've been talking about and the model that they're going down. Not at this stage. 5 years down the line, I don't see any reason why those signings aren't being made at Newcastle United. But until there's been consistent success with regards Champions League football consistently, possibly even a trophy or two, commercial revenues massively increased, I just don't see the logic in signing players like that and becoming a bigger version of Everton, which is effectively what they did. Outspent their means massively, chased a dream that never even came close, and have been paying for the last couple of years with regards to FFP. There might be a bit of loosening with that then this year, I don't know, without having access to their accounts, but Newcastle don't want to find themselves in that position and signing players, not just in a sense that it would upset squad unity, which is what massive, like, ultimately that's what this team has got itself through on. There's players in this team who would leave Newcastle United and would sign for relegation threatened sides in the Premier League. That's the reality of it. Let's not beat around the bush here. So a lot of what they've done has been about balancing that and keeping things right in the dressing room, having good attitude, good unity. A lot of that's down to the coaching staff. It's been an incredible season, really. But they won't want to upset the apple cart in that respect. But also the second arm to that idea about signing players on really big money is that they can't afford it at the moment. They haven't got the commercial revenues. Their commercial revenues are dwarfed by the likes of Tottenham even and others, massively dwarfed. So they can't really compete with players asking for fees in the region of, 250 grand a week. I'm not saying Bruno's new contract might not edge up towards that. It may well. And then there's very little excuse to say why they then couldn't sign players this summer, and I expect they might, who will be on slightly more than what Bruno's on now. But I think there has to be a balance in all respects, that they can't push the boat too far because they're just going to cripple themselves moving forward, especially while monies haven't really hit the bank yet from a number of things. And the key thing that monies haven't hit the bank from is commercial sponsors. And I expect to see a lot more than just a shirt sponsor, which I think I spoke to you guys last week and I said, look, my information was not quite. I'm pretty much led to believe it is done and it's there. And I think that should be announced. They have a working date. The idea potentially is to do a big launch on June the 9th to tie in with Bladen Races, to tie in with Sam Fender's big gig on the Friday night. So yes, I think we'll see. It may be an announcement or something before that, but they had 2 working dates. I was told they were working towards, and the key working date was June the 9th.
Okay. Do you think we'll sell Bruno, says Charles Barnes? Because a lot of Liverpool fans are getting very excited, winding people up on Twitter in particular. Think that 85 million is going to be enough to prize Bruno away from St James's Park. We're not a selling club, Liam, are we? It's not like the old days.
I think they're going to have to do some wiggling with players, but I wouldn't think Bruno would be top of that list. If somebody comes in with a bid of over 100 million, I'm sure it'll be considered, because that 100 million then allows you to do a lot in the market. But it would be a big risk. You find football clubs, every club that's built has to sell certain players to further improve their squad. Sometimes players do have to leave It just doesn't quite feel like the summer for Bruno. I think if they hadn't have got Champions League, you might have been looking at a Bruno sale potentially this summer, because I think his ambitions would have been slightly, and I don't think he's unhappy, so that's not what I'm saying. But I think a player of his ability should be playing in the Champions League. But I think the fact that they've qualified, I don't see, unless, like I say, it's a very, very difficult for any footballer in world football. There's only a certain level of club that are very, very difficult to turn down. And I think it's probably 3 clubs that would be very, very difficult to turn down, in my opinion, even at this stage. Would that be maybe Man City? And that's probably the 3rd. But I think Barcelona, although they're skinned, and they're obviously going to focus all their wiggle room, if they can make any with the La Liga, on trying to get Lionel Messi back. And the other one's Real Madrid. I think there's just certain clubs in world football that you can't say no to. And I think if Real Madrid came in and wanted Bruno and really wanted him, I think that would be the way he would leave. But I just don't quite see it. I don't quite see it happening this summer. Now, what I would say is I think they're going to have to get clever with some others. And I was talking a fair bit about this today. I think St. Maximin's one. We had this debate last week. It's never going to please people what I say. They tried to sell him. Look, they didn't try to sell him, but he was made available to football clubs last summer for around 40 million, and there was no takers. No takers at all. One Premier League club did want him, but didn't want to pay anywhere near 40 million for him. And you look and say, has he had a season where he's upped his value? Has his stock risen in the last 12 months? And the argument doesn't even get off its feet. It's a no. So I think a year left less on his contract. Club aren't going to offer him a new contract. That's my information. That's been the case for a while. I think he'll be sold this summer. I think Eddie Howe was very clever with his words, and I think he put the emphasis massively on St. Maximin. Top and bottom of it is the bloke needs to come back. I like him. This isn't a criticism of the player himself, but I think this is a fair criticism, and it's what Eddie Howe pointed to is it's up to him. If he comes back fit, please be smarter fans than what you've just seen on social media. The bloke's doing 10 minutes on a treadmill when he cassinated top on. Do you not think he's doing that deliberately? He's the social media king, as a lot of people out there like to call him. I think it's very staged. So let's just be a little bit more cynical rather than believing. He needs to come back fitter. He was nowhere near fit enough for much of last season. Nowhere near fit enough. And Eddie Howe said that. He said it's up to Alan. So his future is up to him. If he comes back ready, really fit, then he can stay. And I don't think anybody would have any complaints because the lad's got talent in abundance. But I think that's probably one they may look to offload. And the other one, which may prove controversial to some or not others, and this isn't me based on any information I've heard from the club. This is my personal opinion. My personal opinion is, as much as I like him, I think Miguel Almiron's stock will probably never be higher. He's 29. He's had the best season of his career at Newcastle United, but Newcastle United are actively looking to upgrade in that position. So for me, I think if you could make some money and move a player out and bring some decent money back in, then I think he's one that they could potentially look at.
Yeah, I think you're right. And getting back to ESM, he is social media king. There's no doubt about that. He can.
I mean, what did you think, Steve? Like, were you the same as me? You looked at it and said cynic straight away. How,
yeah,
man?
Yeah, I mean, look, his messages prior to the Chelsea game were very cryptic, and that's the
deliberately so.
Deliberate. Yeah, that's what happens on social media. You can put something on there if you're that way inclined to which can be misinterpreted by supporters. So it is a strange situation, and I agree with you. Let's just sit back and wait. If he stays, I won't be disappointed. If he goes, we get money for him and we spend it on, a good replacement. I'll equally be happy. I trust the owners and I trust Eddie Howe to get this summer right. And those people who have been brought in around Eddie Howe, I think we'll make this a transfer window to remember. I certainly do. Yano, we got your question about the strips. We talked on that. It looks like the 9th of June. And it makes sense, tying in with 2 back-to-back events as well for Sam Fender, the 9th and the 10th at St James's. No doubt Sam will be wearing it while he's playing at St James's, and the club shops will be doing a roaring trade. Jack, out the winner of the Super 6, Jack. Well done. When's Hamza Chowdhury signing on loan? Yeah, God. It's still weird, isn't it, that we're not linked with Hamza Chowdhury and Hamza Chowdhury these days in transfer windows. It's a flashback to the old days, isn't it? Weird situation.
I mean, Steve Bruce was desperate to get him in as a midfielder at Newcastle United, but the way things are looking at Leicester, the people that they're going to pin their hopes on, I believe he's going to be going back there and he'll be working to try and get them back in the Premier League. But that's kind of his level.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. It's a name. It is just a name that that is significant because of the previous era. Yeah, Rob, we talked ASM slightly earlier. Good to see you, mate. And if anybody's not seen Rock and Rob's music review, it's great. It's only 15-20 minutes. We do like a show a week. He covers different albums. Have a look on there. We did a Technique by New Order the weekend. That's the one to look at. Chicken Oriental, we did look at your question as well about Rice and Kane, 2 probably of the most unlikely players to arrive at Newcastle, I would have personally said, but never say never. Chippers wants to know if you're close to signing for anybody after that penalty last week, Liam.
I didn't think there'd be any takers. Thanks for the note there, Chippers, but no, I think the penalty was my highlight. And everything else that went before it, if there was anybody watching that game, they certainly wouldn't be coming for me, I can assure you. I tell you who they might take a look at. The Newcastle United media team, Tom Nipper, it was like playing against Jacob Murphy. Honestly, his pace was incredible. Scored some lovely goals as well.
There you go. Anybody watching? That's the man, Tom Nipper. Okay, Chris. Dominic, there you go, Chris. I hope that helps you. Benny, back on this train. He says, question for Liam. Any truth in the strong interest in McTominay rumours? I've got my fingers crossed. It's a red herring to disguise the business we actually plan to do. We've asked you this a few times on here because he's been a name again linked with Newcastle on more than one occasion. There is going to be a little bit of gamesmanship with agents and clubs, I guess, stirring the pot a little bit with the media. But McTominay, I just scratch my head with this one. Not because I don't think he would be. I don't think he wouldn't be a welcome addition, because when Longstaff was out the team, we clearly missed him, and McTominay could do the job that Longstaff does. Is he a massive improvement? And would Manchester United be willing to sell a player to Newcastle United? I don't know. Maybe the fact we loaned them Dubravka, maybe the ice has thawed a little bit between the two clubs. But what's your thoughts on McTominay, Liam?
I don't think he's got much of a future at Man United. I don't think he's a 10 Hag player. So I think he might leave. I think a lot depends on the price. I do think Eddie Howe, what I'm led to believe is Eddie Howe does like him. The recruitment team have looked at him, see his finishing, size, experience as being potential key factors in any squad building exercise that goes on at St James's. They're looking to potentially sign 2 midfielders. I could see a domestic experienced midfielder, at least one of them being an option. But I think a lot depends on the price. I don't imagine they'll go and spend 50 million on somebody like that. I think the price would have to be massively reduced. But I think I wouldn't rule it out. That's all I would say on it. I certainly wouldn't rule it out. Okay,
Mark Byers is going headline writer. He says, I got you a headline ready for when we sign Dominic. Sub on the time. Doesn't quite work when I say Dominic, but you knew what I meant anyway. Keep reading McTominay linked, says Alan. Yeah, well, as Liam says, that's not going to go. It's not going to go away, that one. Tim Cairns, good evening, says players on the radar. So Bosley, Bakker and Thuram, all pure class. Get one of them. I think we'd all be really happy. BT said, is there any truth in signing Pablo Mia? a defensive midfielder from Sao Paulo, who is 21 years old, for 13 million. Interesting one, that, because it fits in with Newcastle's remit of signing youngsters.
Yeah, well, they are targeting at least one player in that bracket who doesn't necessarily come into the 25 man, like what they had with Gordon and Ashby this season. So it wouldn't surprise us if they go and sign a couple. I'll be honest with you, it's not a name that I'd heard mentioned at this stage, but we'll have to keep an eye on it.
Okay, I wouldn't buy a bottle of milk off Man United. Their hatred and bitterness towards NUFC is pitiful, says Keith. BT also said, is there any truth that Newcastle have scheduled talks regarding a new long-term contract for Fabian Schär?
I'd not heard, I very much doubt it would be a long-term contract. There may be talks to add another year to it, but I don't imagine it'll be long-term.
Rachel says she wouldn't want a Man U cast off, getting back to McTominay there. What do you think of the upgrade to the training ground? Newcastle, of course, keeping up their social media content by sticking it out on YouTube, a little tour of the training area. Ian says, what do you think of the upgraded training ground? It looks fantastic. It does, doesn't it? I mean, you know, from our perspective as supporters, it's not something we often get a chance to see, but it looks wonderful.
Yeah, it was really nice what they did, wasn't it? Where they put the video up, had a bit of a laugh with Shola.
It was like, I was waiting for him to do something like he did on that Cribs thing. Do you remember years ago?
Yeah. Well, that's what it was. Was it not like loads of caps or something like that? You know,
yeah. He thought he'd been burgled at one point as well, didn't he?
No, I think it's really good, and it embraces the whole new attitude and ethos that there is at the football club now. That's much more open and much more light-hearted, a bit of fun about it. With regards to training ground itself, yeah, it looks good. It still looks like a training ground that could do with significant improvement, but it's baby steps. I think it was this football club, and people from the outside looking in don't realise how far this football club was behind even championship clubs in the manner in which it's set up. So that training ground there, still one thing that still can't be done, which might come as a surprise to some. They can't even have training sessions later on in the day, you know, in the winter and things like that, because there isn't floodlights at the training ground, which might sound really silly. But that's the situation Newcastle United are in, that they're so far behind even just run-of-the-mill championship clubs with regards to their training. It's really nice to see. It looks like certain parts of it are really leveled up. Having been in the old one a few times, it was school dinners time when you used to go in the in the canteen. It looks beautiful. It looks, you know, like a lovely glass-fronted high-end restaurant in many ways, a nice environment for the players to socialise and eat their, you know, refuel before and after sessions. And we got little looks into the office spaces, and having been in the office, the last time I was in there was with Rafa when he invited me up to the training ground into his offices, and it was tired. It was really tired and tatty, actually. A lot of the walkthroughs and the hallways and the offices themselves. So it's really, really positive to see that the just lightening up and modernization of the workspace, which is kind of what you expect now. I think most people their office environments, most people who work office environments expect a little bit more than what you used to get, and I think they're delivering that. And it's only going to get better. The pool area was amazing. I mean, everybody remembers the Asda blow-ups that were there, you know, like the kids paddling pools, the wheelie bins with ice in. So it's come a long way since all of that. But this is only the start of it, really. It'll continue to get better and better and better.
Yeah, certainly will, mate. It is exciting times. Evening, Paul Gallant. Thanks for sharing the show as usual. I mentioned
Paul will always listen to your podcasts. Me and the lads when we're driving down, so keep up the good work.
Yeah, good stuff. Love the pictures of the dressing room after wins. What a great idea for a sense of pride, says Kev Tay. Yeah, and Shola needs a little bit of work on his presenting. Well, yeah, he scored goals against the Mackham, so I think we'll give him a little bit of buy for that one, Kenny Ranson. Benny wanted to know, in the training ground video, what was the spinning wheel thing with amounts of money on each segment? Was that fines for players? He said.
Yes. Yeah.
All right,
fine.
there you go.
So that wheel isn't brand new to the training ground. They've had that since Howe came in.
Right, okay.
So it just seems to have been given a permanent fixture on the wall, which is good. So yeah, it's fines for various things. You get something wrong, you're late, whatever it may be, you spin the wheel. And even if you haven't got, I mean, not a lot of people do carry cash these days. It normally goes in a kitty. And if you haven't got the cash, Simon Weatherston has got a card machine, which he makes the players get their card out and sort of tap 100, 500, whatever the fine may be. So I imagine they're building up quite a kitty there at St James. I'm not sure. I think they may actually give it a charity, but I'm not
Great
sure.
idea.
I'm not even sure what they do with it, but yeah, it is a good idea, and there's nobody gets away with it at that score. And I think it builds that sort of togetherness.
What was the reason for the white shorts on Sunday? Do you know? Says Blue Rhythm Boy.
No.
No, it's weird. Sometimes it clashes with referees and
Yeah, why'd you ask? What do you feel is a theory behind it? I'd like to see you come back in the comments and see what you think.
Yeah, strange one. Dark by Design, a question: who does Liam think the first signing will be? So it's your personal opinion. I mean, no idea.
No, honestly, I don't. It's a cards close to your chest summer so far. I think because they're working off so many lists, we had a little bit of an idea last summer on where they were going to go. Less so this summer because it's been all quite guarded with regards 3 different lists, working on 3 different lists until about a month ago, really.
Yeah. Mark Cal was just wanting to know, do you think we'll do our business early before I come to BT's question on the screen? Do you think we'll do a little bit of business early?
I think early business is tough. I think early business when you're fighting for Newcastle United still aren't really, they're fighting for players in a group with a group of clubs where they're still not really established into that group. Yeah. So it's still a little bit of a risk, if you know what I mean. It's still a little bit of a risk for Newcastle United, signing for Newcastle United for certain players who may have options at already established clubs in them groups. You know, there might be a Manchester United in for the same player. There might be, I don't know, teams from the continent might already be in for the same player who are making a Champions League semis and quarters, and Newcastle aren't in that group yet. They're just emerging from lower down the division into those sort of circles. But there's plenty going for them. I just think it's tough to do deals when you're working under those parameters. It wouldn't surprise me if it's just a steady drip through the summer. If they can get one done, they'll be happy. Ideally, every manager wants players through the door for that first day of pre-season, but I just don't see it. I think it's really tough to get your full set in. There's very few managers can.
When is the club going to make a decision on Loris Karius and Martin Dubravka on being the number 2 to Nick Pope?
So the future of Dubravka is up to him. If he wants to stay, he'll stay. If he shows any signs of wanting to leave, I think he'll be allowed to leave. I think that's pretty clear. With him, they would like him to stay, but it's ultimately going to be up to him. Karius, I would be very surprised if he's still at the football club next season. Very surprised. The player himself wants to move to Italy. His partner wants him to move to Italy. He spends the majority of his time outside of football in Italy, only really training during the week at Newcastle United. Then on most match days, bar the last 2 of the season, virtually every other match day between Leicester on the Monday night and the Carabao Cup final, virtually, I think, probably all of the match days between them, he was not in the country. He was actually in Italy, which is a very strange place to be. Mark Gillespie was the 3rd keeper who travelled around with them, and Karius was left to his own devices, having trained all week. So I'd be very surprised if it's one that moves forward. But look, if it's an arrangement that they feel works for them and it works for him, then why not? But it just seems a bit of a marriage of convenience is probably the way I would describe it.
Billy Rhythm Boy says, the only thing I can think of is that they felt that the black would clash with Chelsea's blue. It's never been an issue in the past. Did the ref wear black shorts? Maybe the only colour he could wear. We wore black shorts against Brighton away with that fourth top, so no idea really. Yeah, it's sometimes just it could be a laundry issue. You just don't know, do you? I guess.
Yeah, no, I think it's probably something to do with the referee deciding that there's some kind of clash, or maybe the clubs beforehand coming to an agreement. So no, I don't think there's any deeper reason to it other than that, really.
Okay, yeah. Football Ready says João Felix would be a good signing, but Newcastle a good marquee signing. Kenny says, I hate the transfer window. I try to keep our social media, but people message me and I have to check. The transfer show must be head doing. Yeah, and it's part and parcel of the summer, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Keith Patterson says, what would you say, Liam, to selling Wilson and ASM for 40 million apiece and then going for Osherman?
I don't see it, and even what would I say to it? I mean, if you could get him for 80 million and somehow, Keith, I think you're being a bit fanciful thinking you'd get 40 million for Wilson and ASM, 80 million for them two. You'd probably be. I just don't see Wilson leaving. I think you'd be here.
Me too.
And ASM, I think you're looking more like 20 than 40. And people keep coming back with the idea, I know, but Mason Mount's worth 80, and I know, but such and such is worth this and that.
I think we'll get more for ASM. Like I do. Not much more, but
I think
yeah,
if they got 25 for ASM, they'd be doing really well.
Yeah, Hooker story weren't testing fan reaction to white shorts for next season's new kit. They were honking. Yeah, we just get a fans advisory committee to sort it all out. BT says, do you think that Newcastle are currently looking for land big enough to build a new stadium and training complex to replace the one at Benton?
The second one, yes, not the first one.
All right.
The first one, they've shown a commitment to St James's Park by acquiring the land next at Strawberry Place.
Yeah.
So I don't envisage they'll be doing anything other than attempting to build something more, in the first instance, something more to improve a fan experience and then to get more bums on seats in time. But realistically, as I mentioned on the show last week, you're going to have to be realistic about what any expansion plans mean at Newcastle United. And this is some really clever architects employed to really squeeze as much as you can out of that footprint, then and the restrictions that are around it, then I think you're only going to get about, you'd max out at 60 with any expansion of the Gallagher and a little bit of fiddling around elsewhere. I can't see how you'd bring much more in, but I think that's on the agenda there with the training ground. This was only ever a stick and plaster to improve. Because it's going to take years to get to that point where you find they are looking for property. Like I said, there's two major places that they've scoped out, as reported by other people. There is two. I think the one that was favoured was Gosforth Park, edges of Killingworth, and I think it would tie in with a lot of what they're trying to do. But that'll take years. That'll take years to plan, build. Get everybody in. So they had to do something with this because you couldn't have lived 3 or 4 years potentially in this training ground having not done something to it. So they've had to pour a bit of money into that, knowing they're not going to get anything back from it, just to ultimately keep up with the growth of the football club.
Okay, interested to know what Liam thought of Miley's debut. I was quite impressed. We may have a real player there. Hit the bar, of course, Liam.
I thought he was great. I thought the biggest compliment I got paid to him at 17 is that he did not look any way, shape or form out of place in that midfield. I thought he was excellent. Big, athletic. He's only young. He's going to need some time on loan. He's going to need to grow elsewhere potentially. But I think ultimately he was excellent. And there's a lot to like about them. And when you speak to people in and around the club who've seen a lot of him, have dealt with him, they do nothing but speak very, very highly of him. And we've seen Longstaff, we've seen Anderson come through, who I think, again, is growing into a real asset in this squad. Physical, strong, robust footballer with really good feet. People talk about Miley in a different bracket altogether from the ones that have come through in recent years, which can only be a good thing.
Chris says, Liam, because the Champions League draw is the same day as the window, Do you think there might be some late deals in case we get a group of death? And he also asks, question to Liam, have Newcastle had any decisions on who to bring in for Wilson's replacement? He's only got 1 year left on his contract. I mean, again, that's all speculation, Chris, really. I mean, he's got 1 year left on his contract, but, I think Newcastle will be looking to improve the forward line anyway. And the Champions League draw, I mean, you said business won't happen early. I agree with you. I think we might get a player in, possibly two. And again, this is just my feeling. At the early part of the window, before the friendlies start. And then I think we'll do business, maybe a little bit business towards the end. That's my gut instinct anyway.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think they'll definitely get a couple in before starting pre-season. But I think the major business will probably wait a little bit later in the window. It's just essentially the way these things work. Probably the best way to go about things would be closing the window before everybody kicks off, but that's very difficult to do. It limits things by quite a few weeks and would probably cause absolute panic with regards to trading in certain respects. So they'll probably try and avoid that a little bit. But yeah, I think they'll try and get some done early. Ideally, every manager wants every player when they first come back, which I think they're coming back. I might have my date right. I think it's the 7th of July, I think.
Yeah.
Around that time is when they're due to come back. How long does that give us, Steve? 5 weeks? 5.5 weeks? I would hope they'll have a couple in by then.
Yeah, I think we're all hope they've got a few in by then, 100%. Dave Bullman says Wilson won't leave with a chance to play in the Champions League. I agree. Now there are some really good free signings available. Who would you go for on a free?
Well, I don't know. I think I'm long past the idea of like predicting and guessing and saying, I would do this, I would do that. I think let's just trust who Eddie Howe fancies. I wrote for the first time at Stamford Bridge, end of season, yes, no jeopardy on the game. But I know me and you, Steve, have been kind of in different camps with regards to Anthony Gordon. I actually thought playing in that 8 role, there was a little bit more to him than what we'd seen in the different position. There could be scope there for a bit of growth, and I think it could be one of those things where it's just trust the manager because he sees these players and he knows these players better than what we do. So I'm not about to say, I'd love to sign this X, Y, and Z, and that'll turn us into X, Y, and Z. I think the manager's got ideas on the way he wants the team to play, and he'll find players who'll fit into that system. So if I was to say who would I like to see you sign, and this isn't a free transfer, is the guy the unpronounceable Hungarian guy, Dominic, from. I'm not going there.
Sabozley, yeah. It sounds right. That's who I'm sticking. Cooney would be one that Christopher's talking about. He said, no, I wasn't disagreeing with you, Chris. I do think he want to stay because of the Champions League, Wilson. And I've listened to every Eddie Howe press conference, as you know. I review them on the channel, and the respect that he's got for him. But I get your point. We've got a lot of games to play potentially next season, and 100%. I agree with you, Chris. How are you, man? Liam, make up some names like others do on YouTube. I think Eddie. I think Eddie has his eyes on bigger trophies than the Manager of the Year. To be honest, I doubt he is bothered. Lots of people disappointed he didn't win Manager of the Year. It was down to Pep Guardiola, of course, who won the league.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with what they did. My choice would have been Eddie Howe on the idea that Man City. I love Pep, by the way. I think he's an incredible guy and manager. But he won the league last season, and he won the league again. Points will tell you they had a worse season than what they had last season. So I don't think Man City were as good as what they were last season. The idea of the treble and all that kind of stuff, I think, clouds things and clouds the judgment. This was purely based on Premier League performance. And I think if you base it purely on Premier League performance, going first to first, having signed the best striker on the planet, isn't necessarily a huge jump up for me. It's not really, is it? It's probably a little bit of a drop down in terms of their Premier League performance. I think Newcastle's performance under Eddie Howe shows a huge overachievement, and I think for that reason I would have given it to him. But you can't really argue if you base it on who was the best manager the guy won the league. So, isn't that what everybody wants to do? So, yeah, I can't really argue that he got it, but it wouldn't have been my decision.
Yeah. It's just one of them things. It looks like Pep will probably get the treble as well. I can see them beat Man United, and I can see them winning the Champions League. And
I think they'll do it comfortable. I think they'll give Man United the right turning over in the FA Cup final. I really do. I think there's big levels between the two sides, and I think they'll do the same in the Champions League final as well.
Yeah, the BBC one, Eddie Howe was leading it. And I've seen the goal of the season. I think Almiron against Fulham and ASM against Wolves has made the shortlist for that as well. The
one that I'll pick out on that one is the guy from Wolves, Nunes.
Yeah,
I think that's my goal of the season. And that's, as much as I thought ASM's was incredible, that I think that Nunes goal is beyond that, I think.
Anything on Rafael Guerrero?
Been linked before. Been linked quite some time ago, actually. I don't see it. I don't see that one coming off, but it'd definitely give you some Champions League experience. And I think he's a free transfer as well. But no, I don't. If I had to put my money on it, I wouldn't see him turning up in Newcastle. But like I say, stranger things have happened. Victor Gyökeres, I think, is a very, very good player. Big, physical, good technical. But I don't think he's the player that they're looking for this summer. I don't think they're going to go and sign an out-and-out centre-forward. I think they're going to sign somebody who can play across the three.
Barry, that's your job for the summer, because you do the fans forum on a Monday. I've been keeping a list of names for the last 8 days. We're up to 82 different players. Barry, I tried it last year. I got to 527 or something. So good luck, mate. Until the end of the transfer window, you've got the job with NUFC Matters of writing them down. And then we'll stick them on a T-shirt or something. Even Newcastle World has linked us with 7 players in the last week, Liam. He says, I'm praying that they are true. Thuram, Tierney, Felix, Lucas Moura, and Alex.
Right. So I'm just going to qualify this. Newcastle World has not linked us with Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain or Lucas Moura. They've done stories on other people linking them. So it's a bit of a eating itself thing, but that information definitely hasn't come from anybody who works for me. It's just been people probably regurgitating things for clicks.
There you go, an honest journalist. That's why we'll get Liam on you, 100%. No way we're getting 40 million for Wilson, says Mark Byers. P. Davison says, I'm very happy with the guest tonight, Steve. Apologies, I couldn't keep it shut. He wasn't very happy with some of the guests who were on the fans forum. It's all about opinions, mate. Dave Bullman says, evening all. Tyler Adams from Leeds, be good signing and wouldn't cost much.
I like him. I actually do. I don't think it would be one that people get excited about, but I do think he's a good player. In that similar type of role, I think someone who can do the box-to-box 8 as well as the sitter and can sort of transfer with Bruno, the one that I want to see them go for, if they can persuade him to leave Manchester City, would be Calvin Phillips.
Yeah, Jack Harrison was another one who was linked.
It wouldn't surprise. Like, I see with them going down. If you look at their squad list, he's immediately one that jumps out here, isn't he? I'll be honest with you, Jack Harrison isn't somebody that's overly impressed me when I've seen him playing. I think his output is a bit limited. His final ball, things like that, I just don't see it. But look, like I say, I've been wrong on players before, and I might well have been wrong on Anthony Gordon. So who the hell am I to know?
Simon says, are we interested in going back in for Franca, do you think?
This is the thing, Steve. I sound clueless today. Like, the amount of it's just because there's so many names get thrown about.
Yeah, Barry's finding that out. He's up to 82. He's probably got another 12 from tonight's show.
All I'll say is they're not going to... I'll say with some degree of certainty that they'll not sign 95% of the players that they're linked with.
Yeah, Blue Rhythm Boy says we need to start signing clear starters, and Harrison isn't that. Phillips will go to West Ham as a make weight for Rice. Yeah. Liam on Harrison, he is one-dimensional, says Kev. And is there any players that we haven't been linked with yet? That will be a shorter list. I'll finish with this one tonight. Liam, if you could spend all day with a manager coach, who would you like to spend time with? Not how, though.
It's so easy. That's a good question, but it's so easy. Pep Guardiola. Like, I would just love to be in his company for a day. I think that would be that'd be a little bit of a fanboy moment for me. I think I'd be a little bit starstruck were Pep to invite us to the training ground and spend a day with him. I think he's somebody who you could learn a lot from in many different ways.
Ryan, we'll let you sneak in. Arda Güler. Again, it's just another name, isn't it? It's just another name. Cancelo is available from City. Again, not exactly. Wants lots of money. Kenny, the answer is yes, it will be, I think, at some point, but lots to be discussed. I always think they should use behind the Milburn, not the Milburn, the Leazes end. That's what I've always felt that they should use for some kind of stadium, fans area. But
where do you mean, like a car park? Like a car park there?
Yeah, I mean, there's massive space behind there. You could still have the cars going past if you need. I mean, the cars go up into the stadium, up the ramp, so there's plenty of space there. Do you know what I mean? To have like a fan zone. I think that would be something that could do. I mean, I'm not hearing that that's going to happen in any time or place, but maybe they should, or even at the Gallagher. I mean, they do it there. We're going to have Magic Weekend up here shortly with the rugby, and ultimately we do that there anyway. Chris Banks says, I was sure Liam would have chosen Steve Bruce. Definitely not.
Honestly, I would love to have another press conference with him. I think that'd be quite incredible. Some of the things he came out with were absolute comedy gold.
I've deleted the thing on here where we used to get him on going, yeah, but anyway, you get the point. It sounds like Sir Bosley. Thanks, Liam. That hour's passed very quickly. I'm glad you had a bit of time with the kids today. It's been lovely weather, as people can see. My first lookalike's already come in, and it's a tomato. Not that I'm spoiling anything. Thanks, Chippers. Great to have you on, Liam, as always, and we will chat again next week. Take care, pal.
Cheers.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to place an order, call 01768 210 102 or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things, and at qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you like the channel, please hit the like underneath the video. It helps us grow. And click share and share to your other social media. If you want to help us financially, please click join. And there's a range of different packages, and it explains how you can do that. If you want to become a cult member and receive these goodies, a scarf, a pen, and a cup, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw, for a one-off fee of £25, simply go to nufcmatters.com and find cult membership. If you've got a smartphone, put it over this QR code now. It'll take you straight there. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. And we also support the food bank on this channel. The Matchday Bucket helps you donate virtually. Go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk to find out more. We've got some events coming up over the course of the next 12 months. An evening with John Anderson takes place at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe. Only limited tickets available. 13th of June. Go to their website to buy tickets. Bend it like Bobby. Cometh the hour, cometh the man. And just after the hour, the man did cometh at the double, as it was time to bend it like Bobby. It's a comedy play. It's a rehearsed reading by Jim Orr. It features myself and a few other cast members. Friday the 16th of June. Tickets on sale at newcastlelegends.com, and they're only £5. And even with Frank Clark, well, this is our Christmas due. Thursday, December the 7th. Tickets are £15 from nufcmatters.com at the Tyneside Irish Centre. And a big one for the new year, January the 25th. Keegan, Waddle and Beardsley and special guests back together, the class of 1984 at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on Westgate Road. Tickets available direct from the venue. If you like T-shirts and you want a few for the summer, get yourself to nufcmatters.com. The Isaac T-shirt is proven very popular.